I managed the Beverly Hilton for over 20 years. We hosted some of the most important events in the world. And I can tell you this, the way audiovisual operates inside of hotels today hasn't kept up with the experience hotels are looking for.
Even at that level?
Even at that level, especially at that level. Because when something doesn't work in the ballroom, it's not the AV company's reputation on the line, it's the hotels.
Every industry has a moment when it has to confront its own outdated systems. Welcome to Full Resolution. For years, Hospitality AV has operated on a model built around rentals, line items, and complexity. We helped build that system, and now we're here to challenge it. There's a clearer, smarter approach rooted in ownership, operational efficiency, and real revenue growth. Join us, and let's get this movement started.
Welcome back to Full Resolution. I'm Chirag, Patel.
And I'm Martin Kwitschau. Today, we're stepping out of theory because we're joined by someone who's lived this at the highest level. Michael Robertson, former hotel manager of the Beverly Hilton. Michael, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here.
So, Michael, you've had the opportunity at the Beverly Hilton to see both the traditional and permanently installed models simultaneously. Let's start with the traditional. From your perspective, what worked on the traditional side of the house and what did not?
The traditional side of the house, it worked for the AV company. I don't think it worked for the customer or the hotel. You always spent more time pushing equipment in and setting it up than you did for the actual events. And I think that's the challenge.
And beyond that, were there pricing issues? Were there any other issues that come to mind from your perspective?
Absolutely. You just don't have any pricing control. You don't have any room to negotiate without having to go really strong arm the AV company. You're really a victim when you're running an event in a hotel.
What's kind of strange, perhaps, too, is in a hotel, the hotel owns everything. It owns F&B, it owns the carpeting, it owns the chandeliers, but it really doesn't own AV, does it?
Exactly. They don't have any of that equipment, so they don't have any of the control that they need. They don't own the staff either, so they don't have the service. They can't dictate the service levels like they would with their team.
So the hotel, I guess you could say, carries all the responsibility, but without really full control.
Absolutely. There's nothing worse than sitting in the back of the ballroom watching a show get started and the mic doesn't work. And you know, as the hotel operator, you're going to get the fingers pointing at you. You know that the audience thinks it's the hotel. The AV company is only going to hear from me as the operator.
So I think you've identified operationally some of the friction and some of the pricing friction. Is there also a financial friction that takes place somehow from your perspective?
Absolutely. Over the years, you see the profit or the revenue stream for AV either staying the same in the hotel while, the revenue collected is going up, or it's going reverse. So the percentage of capture for the hotel seems to be diminishing.
You've seen this now happening for decades. You obviously had a career over 20 years at the Beverly Hilton. And I guess, has the model from your perspective actually evolved?
No, I think the model is set in time. I don't think it has evolved. When you watch it, the traditional AV company is just doing the same thing they've always done, and the hotels are allowing the same thing to happen.
How does that manifest itself? I mean, I basically am thinking to myself that, from the business that, I really started 45 years ago, things are pretty much the same. You still have these massive, long proposals, right, with a ton of line items, and these are all equipment-driven conversations, not outcome-driven conversations, correct?
Absolutely. This line item detail of the type of media switcher, the type of projector, the lumens on the projector, but no meeting planner knows anything about that. And I can tell you for sure, no hotel operator does either. So what the end result of all of that equipment and all that technical jargon, what it actually means to the audience member there's a big gap.
Doesn't it seem like the worst way to sell? I mean, think about buying a car like that. When you go to buy a car, instead of them opening the door and showing the inside of it, they start listing off all the parts of the engine and the transmission. It doesn't seem like that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy. It just seems like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it based on the type of fuel injection and not actually how it actually drives. In a car, you used to get to test drive it, right? Nobody's test driving the ballroom in the traditional model.
Well, the reality is nobody wants to buy gear. They want to buy experiences. That's the bottom line, and I think that's where, the shift hasn't taken place. That's gone from, I'll take an overhead projector and a slide projector, which still was just two line items on an estimate or a proposal, to now being hundreds of line items because, a show is a show and it requires a certain amount of gear, right?
Absolutely. And hotels still, I think of that gear being expensive and overly technical, and they just don't feel they have the expertise to deal with that or understand it. They just kind of stuck in time.
And these line items, does that in your mind create an unnecessary complexity for everybody involved?
I think it does. I think we talked about the meeting planner doesn't really understand what those line items are. The hotel event services person doesn't know what those line items are. So it really is irrelevant. If somebody could just give a narrative of what, the scene could look like and, how many mics and how many people can be on stage and how you can support that, that would be a much more impactful way of selling it.
Fortunately, unfortunately, you had to live sort of both methods. You and I together had the opportunity to actually witness a transformation of the method. Let's talk for a second about the International Ballroom at the Beverly Hilton and what we together we tested this years ago. We had this extraordinary room, and really 100% of the time, producers and organizers, they bring in all of their own equipment. They'd bring in their own projectors. They'd set up scaffolding in the back of the room, which, took away from the elegance that the room had naturally. They brought in their own sort of broadcast quality. I think in those days it was the Yamaha PMD5 audio console, which was an important part of that. And then, of course, they brought audio because, you have to have good quality audio, especially if you're hosting events like the Golden Globes. And so the room really wasn't generating its full potential because people were bringing in the equipment on their own in those days, correct?
Absolutely. Every writer that came in, we didn't have the equipment for. So we hosted just dozens and dozens of A-list celebrity musicians, and when you look at audio, we could never hit their rider, so they were always pushing gear in, hanging speakers under our speakers, which just takes away from things. You don't want to drop your current speakers, so they're putting them in front. It's just visually, it's not pleasing. And then for broadcast quality and high end, we didn't have projectors. We would never have invested that much money. So every show, somebody would wheel in these giant, what were those? I don't even know what those were called, but they look like bobsleds that would sit in the back of the room and hit the screens on the side. And, at those days, we didn't even have screens on the side of the stage. So, all of that stuff had to be brought in, and it was brought in every time there was an event. We did over 150, red carpet events a year of this type of quality. So just think about how many times that equipment that came in from different rental companies went up and down and hung and rigged and all the time and all the labor. So yeah, I think it was a huge investment, but also really a major success story to work with you and to bring that equipment in and permanently install it, equipment that would hit all the riders, and then build the trust of these producers.
You made a comment that, those people bringing in the equipment that would put their speakers in front of our speakers. So it's pretty typical in the hospitality industry that built-in audiovisual is absolutely not the norm. And even when there is something built in like audio, it typically isn't done from a quality perspective. It's done from a cost perspective. Would you say that's correct?
100%. Whenever a hotel's going through a renovation, audiovisual is going to be the first thing that gets value engineered, just because there's no knowledge of that equipment. And then also there was no detailed return on investment that was ever thought through by the hotels. And so they see this giant price tag for the equipment that's going to be put in, and not understand the revenue it can generate, both on just equipment rental, but also the caliber of the event that can come in. And then even more so, the efficiencies of not having to have all that setup and breakdown that takes time away from the ballroom operating and generating other revenue like food and beverage.
A little bit of a breakdown then. Let's remind each other exactly what it is that we did do in the International Ballroom. I seem to recall we brought in quite an illustrious audio provider that actually did a custom design for the room. We went ahead and we installed that permanently. We installed video projection permanently. We did some intelligent lighting, bought some of the right pieces like that Yamaha PMD5 I mentioned earlier. And then, as I recall, we even did a show reel, like a 2-minute commercial that anybody that brought a site inspection or a customer into that room could play. And it went around and it showcased the audio, the lighting, the projection, basically told the story about what was possible in that room. Is that how you remember it?
Oh, that's exactly how I remember it. It was, it was kind of what we just said. It was getting to test drive the car before you buy it. And so by instilling, and it also instills confidence. So when a meeting planner can go and sit in the middle of a room where the attendee is and experience the power of the sound system, the brilliance of the projector, and then the added energy that the moving lights give, it's an instant confidence builder in that this hotel is legit. Not the AV company, but the hotel is legit. And this is the level that they expect. And that actually moved so much business our way when we could actually show that, and the meeting planner could feel it.
And before that, I would imagine you had to have them just imagine what it would look like and sound like and feel like. So, and if you're like me, you don't have much of an imagination, so it's hard.
It is. It absolutely is. And it makes you trust without verification.
Yes.
And so it instills trust immediately when you can see and feel it and experience it, and just gives you an understanding. And you can also go on the stage and see what it's going to look like for the speaker. And the confidence is going to instill in the speaker so that they don't have to think about the added pressure of something not working while they're on stage.
To stay with my car analogy, when I bought my last vehicle, I wanted I'm a sound enthusiast, so I wanted the upgraded sound system. I wasn't going to take their word for it. I had them take me to that vehicle, and I wanted to crank it up and hear it myself. So it's much the same way.
Yeah. Also, just the trust in a technical person coming in and hearing that we put in a Myers sound system that was designed specifically for the room, and it was tuned by Myers, and then we tuned it twice a year for the most optimal experience for every space in the ballroom, for every attendee, every corner. That helped with the buying decision also, and instilled confidence, because that was important to ABT and that was important to the hotel.
We're obviously individuals that perhaps were skeptical when we first did that installation, still wanting to bring in the old method, the old speakers, the old scaffolding and projectors. How did that transition take long, and how long did winning that trust by the users of that room, how long did that take?
Yeah, there's two factors there. You brought up trust is one, and the other is, I don't know how to nicely say this, but the good old boy network. So producers like to keep their buddies working and their rental companies, getting rentals coming through. So we had to conquer both. The trust factor, I think, came quicker because you could actually, see it, feel it, understand it was stable, and because it was already installed. And so the slower part was kind of getting rid of the projection guy who just, that was his buddy, and it they always seem to do it, but eventually we got there. It took a little time, but we got there and we chipped away at it. To the fact that we collectively were able to really own a majority of the technical AV and equipment and staff. It comes down to staff too. They had to trust the team.
Yeah. So you're saying, buddy or nobody, people tend to like the easy, better, more spectacular way. At the end of the
Exactly.
day, they're going to choose that over their buddy eventually because it's all business.
It is. And I think it became obvious that it's not cost effective. The client started to see it too. It's not cost effective to wheel in and set up every time. There is savings.